Hi, I'm Jamey from Stonemaier Games, and today I'm going to talk about my favorite mechanism in the game, Things in Rings, which looks like this. So this is a competitive deduction game where on your turn, well, really throughout the game, you're trying to get rid of your hand of cards. Your cards look like those that you can see on the table here. I might have a hand of cards that says volleyball and lion and slippers and briefcase and vacuum, and I need to try to get rid of those cards. And at the end of any of my turns, I need to draw one card. So the way that you get rid of cards is you choose a card from your hand and you place it in one of these rings or outside of all the rings in this none section or in an intersection between the rings. And without knowing, there's one person at the table who knows what the meaning of each of these rings is, but everyone else doesn't know. And so, for example, in the game that we played, the word-related clue, so the yellow string, the word-related clue, I believe, was the word had to have the letter O in it. The context, so this is like where it fits into society or the world, was I believe it was something outdoors, had to be outside. And then the attribute, if I'm remembering correctly, it's like a characteristic of the thing itself. And in our case, it was flammable. And so if I had, it won't work for what you're seeing on the screen here, but if I had the word top, say I had the word top, so it has a letter O in it, so it would go in the yellow ring. The top, this doesn't look flammable and it isn't typically found outside. And so I would only put it in this ring right here. But if it was something that, like a volleyball here, a volleyball also not flammable, probably not. But it does have the word O in it or the letter O in it. And volleyball, you typically play volleyball outside. So I would put it in the intersection between the yellow ring and the red ring. So what I really like here is that it's categorical deduction with all players participating in this at the same time. So I'm saying I told you what the answer to the word, the attribute, the context is, but all players except for one player are blind in figuring that out. And so you just choose a card on your hand, you try to place it in the right position. And if you're right, you continue your turn. You get to play another card and another card until you are wrong. This is how you work towards winning the game. But if you are wrong, or if you really have no idea, it's kind of freeing because you can just play a card. You can just try something. And yes, you might be blind. Yes, it might be a little frustrating that other players seem to be catching on and you can't catch on. But at the very least, if I played this volleyball and I put it only over here in context instead of between context and word, at least then I have gotten a card out of my hand, and the person who has full information will then put it in the right place. And so they are giving me a direct clue. They're giving everyone a direct clue because we're sharing this information as to where volleyball actually belongs on the table. So I really like this idea of shared categorical deduction, where if you want, you could just focus on the word. You could just try to focus on solving what the word related clue is, or the attribute or the context, and you can work towards the other ones. That's why I like the categorical breakdown in this game. Now we played, I think that like the full way to play the game is to play with all three rings with these intersections. So it's really 8 different places where you can put cards. But as you're learning the game, if you want, you could just play with the word and the attribute or the word in the context, or you could just play with the word related clues. Like if you're with a group of people who maybe a younger group who they're trying to figure out what context and attribute and word mean, you could just choose 1 or 2 of these rings and start simply and work up from there. So I really like the difficulty scaling in this competitive game. Also, just a little UI touch that I appreciate. You can see these tiles, the one that says word, attribute, and context. These are double-sided, where on one side it just says attribute, context, and word, but on the other side it gives you more information. You can see the text is kind of small. It's hard to see from across the table, but the text is there to explain what they mean by context or what they mean by attribute or what they mean by word to help you understand it better. So a little UI touch there to have double-sided tiles, one side with details, the other side without. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Things in Rings, a few different elements that come together to make this an enjoyable deduction game, particularly the categorical nature and the shared categorical nature of the deduction, where you're fitting things into different categories rather than just completely deducing something from scratch. And the fact that you are sharing that information with all other players all the time, even in a competitive game. I'd love to hear your thoughts if you've played Things in Rings or if you've played another deduction game that has categories. Even though I'm thinking about this as categorical deduction, a lot of deduction games do have different categories. It's just overt in this game. It's right in front of your face. So yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments below.